We will bring you that live as soon as it happens. In the meantime, the Vice President of the United States says the United States has run out of strategic patience when it comes to North Korea. So what does that mean? Join me now to discuss. Senator Ed Markey, Democrat from Massachusetts. He's a member of the Foreign Relations Committee. Senator, happy Patriots Day.
Thank you. Same to you, John.
Thank you very much.
Two Bostonians.
I appreciate it. Listen, the New York Times calls North Korea the Cuban Missile Crisis in slow motion. So my question to you is, do you trust the president to handle such a crisis?
I think because of the unevenness of his statements and positions which he has taken thus far, it is highly unclear as to whether or not he has the ability to be able to think this thing through in a way that avoids an actual military showdown between the United States and North Korea. President Kennedy and Robert F. Kennedy, they were able to figure it out and ultimately found a diplomatic resolution. But when Vice President Pence yesterday it says in South Korea that the North Koreans should pay attention to the bombs which we just dropped in Syria and in Afghanistan, that's saber-rattling. That is only going to enhance the paranoia in North Korea and intensify the likelihood that they are going to move towards more ballistic missile testing and towards more nuclear weapons testing. So that is not going to take us down the correct path. Instead, what we should be talking about are direct negotiations with the North Koreans in return for the Chinese dramatically imposing crippling sanctions on the North Koreans. That would be a far better way for us to get a peaceful resolution of this conflict.
You seem concerned with the words used, and yes, the Vice President did say pay attention to what happened inside Syria and Afghanistan, but has anything this administration has done vis-a-vis North Korea given you any cause for concern? Yes, they sent Carl Vinson, the USS Carrier, up there, but the Obama administration did just that type of thing. They seem to be pressuring the Chinese. The Obama administration did just that type of thing.
Well, President Trump has made it very clear that if the Chinese do not help us, that he's intending on solving the problem unilaterally. And there has been talk from Secretary Tillerson of the use of preemptive force against the North Koreans, and all of this gets internalized by the North Korean leadership, and it takes us further and further away from a diplomatic rather than a military resolution of this issue. And again, we just can't ignore the fact that Vice President Pence did mention the bombing in Syria and in Afghanistan just yesterday on the anniversary of Kim Jong-un's grandfather's death.
But why shouldn't he? I mean, why shouldn't he make the case that the United States is, in his mind, projecting strength in other parts of the world? Wouldn't that be a message that might give Kim Jong-un pause?
There is no military resolution of the conflict in North Korea. They are already a nuclear power. We have to find a way to negotiate with the Chinese a resolution of this issue. Otherwise, the consequences could be that, like in the Cuban Missile Crisis, with the wrong steps that are taken, it could, in fact, wind up with a thermonuclear confrontation that would not be good for the Korean Peninsula, and it definitely would not be good for the United States of America. That is why there has to be a de-escalation, a partnership with China, direct negotiations by the United States with North Korea. That's a formula that could produce a diplomatic resolution.
If we can shift geographic focus just for a last question here on Syria right now. I know you would like Congress to decide whether or not it wants to authorize the use of force for future possible action inside Syria. If Congress does take a vote on that, which it did not do under the Obama administration, and probably should have done under the Obama administration, but if there is a vote on the authorization of the use of force, would you vote yes? Would you give the president the power for further military action inside Syria?
I think we should debate the authorization for the use of military force on the floor of the House and Senate. If any such authorization included the ability for the president to be able to deploy American combat troops on the ground inside of Syria, then I would vote no on that resolution. This has to be a conflict that gets resolved with the forces of those who have a stake in the outcome, ultimately towards the goal of driving the Russians towards pressuring Assad to the table to talk to opposition forces, but that should not include American combat forces. They are not necessary.
Senator Ed Markey from Massachusetts, great to have you with us, sir.
Thank you. You're welcome.